Well, good afternoon. I'll call this meeting to order. I would suggest we do not have a quorum at this present time, but I understand that's coming. So let's proceed to the new business, the public hearing items. If we don't have a quorum, then we'll just have to delay till he gets here. So we will stand adjourned for a minute.
Do you need to make phone calls, John?
I bet this is exciting television. Oh, here he is. That's all right. Now, if we get staff back, we'll be in business. Oh, there he comes. In that case, we will recall this meeting to order, suggesting we do have a quorum and we're ready to proceed. So item number 2, the approval of the minutes of the August 28 regular meeting.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
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 Approved. Under new business, the public hearing items regarding the review of the National State Register nomination form for the former National Bank of America, 100 South Santa Fe Avenue, now known as UMB Bank. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members.
The National Bank of America, now known as United Missouri Bank, was renamed in 1993, but it has a history that predates that back to 1887. The building is prominently positioned in the downtown Salina at the southwest corner of Santa Fe and Iron Avenues, and it occupies a lot that's 50 feet wide and 120 feet deep on Santa Fe. Brenda Spencer with Spencer Preservation in Wamega, Kansas, has been working with a 100 South Santa Fe Avenue property owner, which is Blue Beacon International, to produce a National Register nomination for the bank. A draft nomination form was submitted to the State Preservation Office, and the Preservation Office contacted the City of Salina and asked us to, as a certified local government, to get a recommendation from our Salina Heritage Mission and City Commissions on the eligibility of the National Bank of America for the National Register and State Register. This notice provides opportunities for the Salina Heritage Mission and City Commission to have public attend and comment on the nomination. The Certified Local Government program was entered into by the City of Salina and the State Preservation Office in 1991, and we currently have 12 National Register properties listed. Additional property, the former St. John's Hospital, is on the State Register with the National Register determination pending. To be considered for the National Register, a resource must be at least 50 years old or older. In this case, the National Bank of America predates that figure, and this would include the architectural features from 1923 when it was constructed to a 1966 renovation of the interior and exterior to modernize the structure. Listing of property on the National Register makes it eligible for tax credits, which are 20% for eligible expenses based on the capital and labor. There's a Kansas rehabilitation tax credit that affords another 25% for rehabilitation expenses. And in order to qualify the tax credits, those must meet the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. The National State Register designation would assure a protective review for the federal projects affecting the property, and under those projects that directly affect the character-defining features of the bank must be reviewed by the State Preservation Office or an authorized local government. So in this case, if the National Bank of America is officially put on the National Register, the Heritage Mission would review any of the physical changes after that. So that is part of the Certified Local Government Agreement, and it allows for local input on changes to the bank. The state of Kansas no longer has the Environs Review, which it did have, where projects within 500 feet of the National Register property would be also reviewed by the Heritage Mission. That was discontinued in 2013, and essentially there's no effect on neighboring or adjacent properties by a designation. The register criteria for eligibility, in this case, on the National Register nomination form, cites that it should be eligible under criteria A, which is the property is associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns or history, and criteria C, where the property embodies distinctive characteristics of the type, period, or method of construction. Under criteria A, the banking venture that became National Bank of America was originated by the brothers Humphrey and James Taggart in 1886. They were able to apply for a state charter in 1886 later, and then 3 years after that, in 1894, they were able to get a federal charter, and the bank was rechristened the National Bank of America. In 1902, Salina businessman Winfield Watson had constructed a 3-story building on the northeast corner of Iron and Santa Fe, and that is where the bank resided for the next 30 years. At this point, we could go through our National Register nomination form for the, pages 20, start. And you can scan up and down on that. This shows the location on an existing Sanborn map, and this one is indicating the 1931 edition. This is a two-story building that stands in the footprint of the modern National Bank of America. This was the Hub clothing store that was taken down in 1922, and the bank constructed in its place. It was constructed of ashlar marble on a concrete frame, and it had distinctive features like a central doorway with a pediment and a sculptural eagle over that. Neoclassical buildings like the White Knight brothers entered into usually had bases on those, and also a clear story, which is an upper story that has a pediment or a tablature that separates the lower floors from the upper floors. Below that is the basic layout of the bank in 1923, and this shows the lobby in this area, a banking layout in this particular area here. As we go through the years, and we can go to the next slide. The bank had a grand opening in 1923, and this shows the turnout in Salina. This building at 104 and 106 South Santa Fe is existing. The old federal post office to the west is no longer existing, and that is a parking lot next to the Smoky Hill Museum, and the Opera House in that location has been removed and is now the United Building. In the next slide. This shows the building as it originally appeared in 1923 with an entry primarily on Santa Fe, and these pilasters, which are typical of neoclassical structures, and those have panels that support the building as well as differentiated. This is just a detail of the doorway of the previous bank. Next slide. This shows a 1923 version of that map, 1964, and where Wilson and Company, engineers and architects, undertook the renovation in 1966 and did make changes to some of the interior features there, and those are detailed very well in the National Register form, and we won't pursue that. And this is another view of the nighttime of the bank. It was denoted by these globe structures, which were put in here in lieu of the downtown street lights, and those are a historic feature in themselves. The next slide. And this shows some of the programming for the grand opening of the bank. In this case, in 1966, what is different here is there's a canopy over the first story here with an entrance pushed to one side. So the original openings are there, but the outside appearance of the bank is changed in that slide in 1966. These are other interior changes that were done and are detailed in the nomination form. The next slide. And this is just, again, the exterior of the bank. It does have a secondary entrance now on Iron Avenue to the rear of the structure. And as you can see, it has a different treatment on the spandrels in these ribbon windows. The next slide down is just the lobby itself, and that is the present appearance of the bank building. We can just go to the photograph scene. The original bank was designed by White and White architects of Kansas City, Missouri, and they were renowned for their neoclassical styles. They also designed the Nelson Gallery of Art and the Cedar Crest House in Topeka for the Kansas governor in 1962. The leadership of the bank prided itself on actively supporting the business community, and the 1996 edition was needed to modernize its interior and exterior, and that was again done by Wilson and Company. Spanning the period from 1966, the existing exterior features that remain include exterior stone facade and storefront entrances dating from the 1960s. There are also some interior features detailed in the nomination form. The building retains a high degree of historic and architectural integrity. The building reflects the evolution of the bank and conveys the physical changes made to it. needs of a expanding financial institution. The building conveys the history of the National Bank of America, a local financial institution that was established in 1887. They built a new building in 1923, remodeled in 1966, and celebrated their centennial as a bank in 1987. The building does retain a high degree of integrity of location, setting, design, materials, and workmanship, and interprets the 1923 and 1966 designs. It was designed, constructed, and modeled for the National Bank of America, maintains integrity of feeling, association, and conveys the bank designs which emanate strength and stability. We believe these meet criteria A and C, both for the local significance and the significance under criteria C for its architecture. Our findings of fact, if you choose to go ahead and act on this, is that the National Bank of America is closely intertwined with the history of Salina and its commercial and economic development. The National Bank of America retains a high degree of historic and architectural integrity. The bank is associated with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad patterns of Salina's history, and that the building embodies distinctive characteristics of a type, period, method, and construction, and is a Salina institution on a prominent building in the corner of Iron and Santa Fe in Salina's downtown. Under your options here, as far as actions today, you could concur with the findings of the nomination form and make a recommendation to the City Commission that the National Bank of America is eligible and meets the criteria for eligibility. You could decline to concur in the findings of the nomination form and provide a recommendation to the City Commission that the bank does not meet the applicable criteria. Under option 3, you could continue the hearing if you would like to acquire additional information. And in this case, if the Harris Mission and chief elected official agree that the proposed nomination meets the criteria of eligibility, the SHPO will schedule the nomination for consideration on the Kansas Historic Sites Board of Review on November 15, 2019. And finally, if there is a denial of the application before you today, there is an appeal process. So at this point, staff would be glad to answer any questions. The technical features of the building would likely be handled by the architect, in this case, Donnie Mars, or the owner of the property, Blue Beacon.
Just a question, and make sure it's clear in my mind, all those changes from the original design were in 1966?
There's some outside changes here in the canopy, as well as in the ribbon windows on these spandrels. These actually date more than 50 years in age. So the bank is being nominated both for its 1923 elements, but the elements that have been added in the 66 edition have acquired significance in their own right because of age.
Questions? Any questions? I think that'll do it.
Sure.
I would take any comments from the applicant. Please state your name.
Excuse me, Guy Walker with Blue Beacon, 500 Graves Boulevard in Salina. I really don't have any formal comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I can give you a little bit of an idea maybe what we plan to do. The bank over the years has shrank in size, and so they are going to move. Right now we're in the process of them moving down to the first floor, and then they'll maintain the drive-through that's on the west side. And we will try to lease out the upper floors to other tenants. The goal really just being to try and bring more business and more office users and daytime users to downtown and support all the restaurants and the other things going on. So that's kind of the basic
lofts.
plan. And, sorry?
No lofts?
No, not in that building. We are we thought about it, but with the historic piece, because it was already an office building, it was going to be a little difficult to turn it into lofts without kind of, John mentioned that there's a lot of historic integrity, and yes. I think we would have probably been hard to preserve that and also convert it to lofts. We also felt like it's a pretty good sized building, but we didn't really feel like we could get very many lofts, which would only bring 2 or 3 people per loft versus each floor we're hoping to lease to a decent sized tenant that might have 12 to 15 employees. So if we're able to lease every floor, that's, another 60 to 70 people downtown.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
It looks like it's pretty simple. Any other citizens want to comment?
Don Mars with DMA Architects, 2035 East Iron. The question you raised, John, about the period, 1966 versus 1923, we're pursuing to maintain the 1966 improvements to the building, which obviously did drastically change what was done originally. But since they are over 50 years of age, we can go back to that period on the exterior of the building.
I was aware of that, that's why I confirmed the issue with the staff, okay? Any questions of Mr. Morris?
Will you be changing the windows then?
No, we will not be. There are a number of windows on the west side of the building that were taken out that are going to be put back. But as far as changing the windows out, changing their style and design to go back to what was there in 23, we will not do that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments by anybody else? Any other questions of staff while we've got this open? In that case, I'll close the public comment portion and bring it back to you guys for a decision.
You ready for a motion?
Yep.
I believe the Heritage Commission, or I move that the Heritage Commission finds the nomination and recommend to the City Commission that the National Bank of America meets the applicable criteria for eligibility by listing the property on the Kansas Register of Historic Places and the National Register of Historic Places.
Okay, that's the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. That was quick. Okay.
If I wasn't late, we would have been done.
Are there any other unfinished business or other business we need to talk about?
Under unfinished business or other business, we did want to alert the members of the Heritage Mission that you also will meet on October 30th, which is in 1 week, and that is for our annual meeting for the Heritage Mission. That is an item we will bring before you, the plans to reconstruct the masonry tower at the Fox Theater, now named the Stiefel Theater, and the repair of masonry on the exterior wall. So those two components need your review as changes to the National Register property. So that will be at your meeting on October 30th, and we will also have a small study session preceding that at 3 o'clock on ethics for board members, and that's something our city boards are all engaging in. So that would be the only other business we have for you today, that we would see you in 1 week's time.
Is there any public comments on the public forum? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, too, Guy. Donnie?
Looking easy.